Hello, my name is Natalia.
My name is Bethany.
I'm Laura.
This is Codex Machina. This is a podcast where we discuss reading, publishing, and all things books.
Hi, hello, and welcome to a new Strangeland Book Club episode. And today we're talking about one of my all-time favorite authors, so I'm probably just going to be geeking out, making some indiscernible noises, so I guess that's all I can do. But before we get to our mystery book today, I would like us to talk about some making book history. So, yeah, I don't know if you've heard of this, but May 2nd, Baltimore. A lot of people that day came to Baltimore to take part in a book festival called A Million Lives. It was a book festival organized specifically for a lot of new indie authors and for their guests and readers to come and interact, buy some merch, talk to the authors, have some panels, all the things we like about these kind of events. It was a paid event, so people had to buy tickets to come, and the event itself was supposed to last 3 days, if I'm not mistaken, with the first day being mainly for people who bought their tickets, the second day a little bit more open, so anyone else from the street could technically come by, and look around to attract new crowds. And on the third day, there was supposed to be a ball.
A ball?
Yeah.
Like ball. Gowns and string instruments.
Absolutely. It was supposed to be like costume ball for all the romantasy fans. And a lot of people who came to that festival, they brought their lovely, wonderful ball gowns, and the crowns and nice dresses. Unfortunately, this is not at all what happened.
I'm already kind of imagining it because we've seen this before.
Wait, wasn't it some kind of Harry Potter experience or swooping?
And I'm about to out myself in a massive way here. I'm also thinking about DashCon.
Oh, well, I don't know DashCon.
Don't worry about it. If you know, you know. Firefest. I know that one. Firefest I don't know, because Firefest actually happened, right?
Well,
This one kind of also happened.
saying that it happened is doing a lot of work.
But yes, so these kind of events, when people are invited, creators are invited to come and participate, they usually also pay for participation, to have a table, they pay a little fee, and so on. And the guests also paying, right? So we're talking not about a completely free event.
No, there's a lot of money coming in, actually.
Absolutely. Any kind of conference, any kind of con usually comes also for creators with a lot of expenses, which hopefully are going to be returned by the sales they're going to make in that event or the networking they're going to make in that event. And that also makes 1,000 Lies, as this festival is now known in bookish community, traumatic, I guess, for a lot of beginning indie authors who had to actually take out loans or get into a lot of financial debt to come to the festival. And unfortunately, they've got close to no returns. Some of the authors do say online, they speak out and they say, I did get my money back, so to say, but mainly because I'm not a new author. I already had a readership, my readers whom I invited to come and join me in this festival, and they did, and this is how I sort of,
So
it worked out for me.
the event kind of was a way to break even, but only for people who already had following.
As it very often is, exactly. So the completely new authors really were left hanging there. What went so wrong? Actually, a lot of things. I'm going to try to keep it short because this is a book review, book discussion episode, but that is such an exciting gossip piece. So basically what happened, there was nothing. Although the authors were informed that about 400 people purchased the tickets, only about a handful of people came on the first day, 100, maybe less. And the second day was also very, very limiting. It was really hard to distinguish if the people were actually ticket holders or they just walked in from the street. Which also would be surprising that they managed to find this event within the conference hall, because there was no indication, there was no decorations, there wasn't even a banner or any posters directing people to come to a particular place, right? So we're talking about a huge conference hall, right? So there is a lot of other events going on. And the only indication where to go was provided by the conference center, the Baltimore Conference Center.
Yeah.
that they put up like this very simple plain piece of, paper poster saying like this way. And unfortunately for the rest of the whole festival, that was the level of organization. There was not enough chairs for people to sit, not enough / none chairs. One of the authors who made the most stink, quite fairly, about the whole affair, is also heavily pregnant with twins. So she said she was not really enjoying this experience because she came there not to present her books, but to support her fellow authors, to go to the ball and, just have fun with book girlies. And then in the end, she was just sitting on the floor during a panel.
While pregnant with twins.
Yeah.
Sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. So I feel like of course these extreme cases. Another creator, also a young indie author, was later speaking out about her flare up during this festival because she also said, like, obviously I just invested so much money and time in this preparation. I couldn't not go. I wasn't paying most of the time of this festival, and unfortunately it's not the experience. I have to admit that a lot of the creators and writers say that still, due to bookish people being nice to each other, it still was a nice event. Like, they managed to make the most of it. The most, however, really relied heavily on the human interaction between the people, with the lack of interaction from the organizing committee. The Archer management, the company that organized this event and invited all these people, solicited all these people to come and join them, all the authors, really did nothing. There's never been transparency in communication. There's never been a lot of communication to begin with. And Grace, the co-owner of this company, she and her husband, they own it together. She herself is an indie author. So probably she saw this event as a sort of really good networking / jumpstarting opportunity. And it could have been if anything had been done.
Yeah, like if you want to network with people, you have to actually do what you say you're going to do. It doesn't look good if you don't actually sell the tickets you said you sold, don't have any kind of plan or map or signage for the event. Like, that's great. That's like bare minimum.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to guess that the ball didn't go well.
Oh, the ball, guess. Probably my favorite part. We're going to leave some links in the description of this episode just to illustrate, because that was basically, it looked like a really bad high school prom that's happening either in the gym or in the cellar of a school. There was no decorations. There were a couple of, so there were some tables. Again, no chairs, no drinks, no bar that was promised. People had to buy a Sprite for $7 for a glass.
It was a cash bar, apparently, and a plate of macaron.
Yeah, which probably someone brought. There was no music. And the hero of the whole event is actually, I think his name is Steve, or
DJ Steve is what they started calling.
Yes.
The security guard who had the portable Bluetooth speaker and jammed them out.
Oh my God, that security guard found out a lot about the world of literary, romantasy that he had not known about before this week.
And I wonder how many stories he's going to be in from here on out.
I bet DJ Steve is going to show up as like an armored knight in the background.
Absolutely. There is videos of him and his colleagues being completely lost, because also the conference center was a bit like, wow, you guys don't look like a ball, really, because it was a bunch of women dressed in these beautiful, gigantic evening gowns
they're around a table full of cookies and nothing.
Concrete floor, no decorations, no music. So Steve actually went home to get this Bluetooth speaker so that they could play some music for themselves.
Oh my God.
How sweet is that?
Yeah, it's very sweet.
And
hero.
Absolutely. And all this time there was a lot more going on. Like, for example, when the organizer promised to have book sales from a local bookstore that apparently was a partner. The fun fact, the bookstore did not know that they were named a partner of this event.
Oh my God.
And they never actually agreed to provide any books for the for the goodie bags, for little presents for people, for participants. So no one got any swag bags. And then the explanation started coming in. Oh no, the conference center accidentally thought that was garbage and threw away all our swag bags.
Oh, sure.
Right.
All the badges for participation came in broken. They were all broken, so we couldn't, even mark people who came in with the tickets, so you would know, so none of that.
Badges usually made of paper and bendable plastic.
I'm like, gave them, stickers.
Right. Hello, my name is, I don't know.
Absolutely. Like there is so many other ways to do that. But then there's been like literally every step from the hotels that were promised to people that they would stay in a hotel right across the street from this event. And then they ended up being like just sorted out to a bunch of random hotels. A person with a wheelchair ended up at a hotel without an elevator. Obviously not on the first floor, as you might have guessed. It's really just a snowball of things.
That's the hotel's fault, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
True.
But was this like intentionally a scam, or did this woman really intend to organize a real event without any knowledge?
Really, really bad at it. I'm sorry, like you can't be so bad at it that you forget to get like a banner or like decorations for your party. Like,
Well, really anything. I mean,
like if I was having a birthday party at my house, I would be better organized than this.
Right.
That's insane to me.
So that is really, like, my impression is that it was indeed just really badly organized event. And to be honest, I feel like she should have noticed this and canceled it, even if it's a last minute cancellation. That is not the end though. So what happened after? A lot of indie authors started complaining on social media, and they really threatened Grace, the owner of the management company, with a lawsuit because they were like, this is nowhere close, nowhere near. People are in debt now. It's not that people made no money.
Right.
People are literally in debt now. A lot of new authors right now, like one author even posted on Reddit that she has a writer's block now because she feels so down since that event happened. She can't sit down and write anything anymore. Because people were really like, it was really an uncomfortable experience, and people obviously requested refunds. People who wanted to bring some helping hands also had to pay extra for these people to come and aid their stands, which is not, as I hear, a common practice in a lot of festivals.
So they were making people who were there to help work the booths had to buy their own tickets?
The author who was bringing them had to basically pay extra for their ticket, for their entry, basically. It was a bit less than the ticket itself, but nonetheless. A lot of people had to hire vans to bring their books. People had to ship their books back home because they never sold them out. And we talking book shipping. That's expensive. People who came from Canada, that was not fun.
Oh, I bet.
That was not fun. So a lot of people are really disgruntled. And
I was disgruntled for this.
yes, me too.
it does sound really like a super sloppy job that had like a long-lasting repercussion. So what happened next after this whole debacle? In the third day, one of the authors asked the owner to actually record a video of her promising to refund this. She did the video, she tagged this author in it, they posted it. So it's like, it was probably a very uncomfortable altercation for that organizer. Next, she promised refund by, I believe, something along the lines of the 12th of June, which had been recently. Today we're recording this on June 18th. And refunds happened for some people, but not for everyone. And not complete refunds, because all the payment methods took their, commissions. For some other things, people did not get refunded. For hotel rooms that people ended up having to pay for themselves, because Grace's cards, the organizer's cards, were blocked because someone stole her identity. So she couldn't actually pay, for all these hotel rooms she was supposed to book.
Stole her identity. Can hear my air quotes.
Yes.
It was like so much at once happening, poor Grace. But now, on the day when she promised to refund everything for everyone, she ended up at a hospital with severe back pain.
Okay.
So she couldn't continue refunding people. And now she's back home from the hospital, but, she can't really be working because she's on a lot of painkillers.
What a debacle.
Yeah. Well, and it seems again like Unbound. Who's taking the brunt of this? It's indie and new authors seem to be really getting taken advantage of in this market. And I think that's really too bad.
So, well, even if we give, this woman and her management company the benefit of the doubt and say, yes, she had every intention of doing a good event and she was just particularly bad for some reason at organizing it, let this be a lesson to you all. If you want to organize a convention, please understand that it does not need only one person. There is a lot of work that goes into it. You are talking about inviting 500 people that you are responsible for to a location that none of you have ever been to. Like, there's just a lot of stuff you need to do to make sure things go well. And number one, you can't do it by yourself. And number two, like, you need to, like, I don't know, make a list of like basic ass things that are required at a party. Yeah, I've seen this happen so many times now where mismanagement has just left a bunch of people completely in the lurch in a city they're not even from. And I'm just like, how do you not feel so much responsibility for those people? Like, you brought them here and it's going to pay you a lot of money for this. Like,
Yeah. It's going to hurt legitimate events because people are going to feel less and less secure about signing up for these things.
yeah, especially if they're like newer events where you don't know the management involved. Like, some of the conventions and stuff have been running for a long time and people know those ones.
So yeah, interesting things happening. But that also makes me think every time when I see something imperfect at Frankfurt Book Fair, for example, which is a huge, huge event. And I'm like, honestly, do I feel like really criticizing that aspect? Probably not, because making the whole organizing this,
It's huge. It is huge and it's a lot of work. And I think they do generally do a really good job of it at some of these larger events. But I will still feel free to give Frankfurt Book Fair shit for not having enough seating and making their seating really inaccessible. I'm like, you people have absolutely no excuse. You should know better.
Yeah. Another really big event in the world of literature is, of course, Hugo Awards. And this is my subtle transition to our main hero, actually, of today.
The Hugo Awards, I'm sure, and the Nebula Awards do better.
Well,
Better event.
not get me started on the Hugo.
Oh, no. Okay.
You know,
Anyway, we're switching to both a Nebula and Hugo Award-winning author.
We are.
Ted Chiang, and we're going to talk a little bit about his short story, The Tower of Babylon, which was initially published in 1990, I think it was, in Omni magazine, which I may have actually read it then and not paid attention because I did have a subscription and I realized this is giving my age, but I don't care. Fine.
I think that we're all pretty open about the fact that we're not young.
I was not born then.
Well, I
You
know that's the thing.
born in 90? It was 1991.
Natalia is young.
That's why you said it now. You said this? No, it was published 1990. I was like, what?
Yes. At any rate, Tower of Babylon did in 1990 won Best Novelette of the 1990 Nebula Awards. And I'll say some of the other nominees included Ursula Le Guin. And he beat Ursula Le Guin. It's a tough short story.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I do not remember for sure. Was this his first thing that he published?
I
I mean, first fictional thing, because I think he'd already been a heck writer. Maybe.
think so, but I'm not sure. Well, apparently he had been writing since high school.
Okay.
And had taken creative writing classes. And there was an interview with him in Electric Lit online that his quote is, "I remember trying to get into a creative writing class in college and hearing the professor announce that she wasn't interested in students who wanted to write science fiction or any other genre fiction because the department's goal was to encourage original writing." Excuse you.
Which I totally like that creative writing feature to read The Tower of Babylon and tell us that it's not original or creative.
I know.
But why are we talking about this story specifically? He has famous stories that I think are more well known than this one. But this one we picked because
maybe not as many people seem to talk about it, for one. Everyone talks, it's a little bit older life.
Yeah.
It's older, but I think the this compilation, the story, The Story of Your Life, Stories of Your Life and Others, was published originally in the U.S. in 2002. So,
okay, actually.
12 years, yeah, the collection. So 12 years. So I don't know when Stories of Your Life was originally published. I think 1998 or so, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's got a huge resurgence in popularity. 2006, the movie was made with Ryan only, of course.
Right.
But no, this one specifically, I think, is really, really interesting for two reasons. One, it kind of re-challenges us to think about what the science in science fiction can mean. And number two, it's really rare, I think, these days to see a story that rests on its own merits and rests on its own premise, and there's no apology made for what's going on in the text. I feel like it's this really recent trend where you could do all this world building, like for a sci-fi or a fantasy, and there's, religion and mythology and so forth, but they always make the protagonist some kind of like non-believer, as if to say to the audience of readers, like, I, the author, recognize that there is no such thing as, God, quote unquote, and this is all just for fun, everyone. We're just having fun here, and we all know that we're all too smart to actually believe in God or whatever. And in this story, that's just really not what's happening.
Right.
This is science to them. And, the inherent premise that God is real and God really did create the world is not questioned by the characters because that's not the world they inhabit.
Right.
And I just find that really fascinating.
Right. Well, and I think, even like there's a lot of science invoked just in obviously the building of this tower, how the farming's done in the upper levels, how they did find things they could grow up there, how much they discuss kind of the engineering aspect of what if the reservoir cracks and all the water floods in. There is a scientific approach in this story, even though it's very biblical in a sense. It's very religion focused as to trying to reach heaven.
Yeah. I mean, as a basic understanding of the premise for any of our listeners who maybe don't know this story, it's the story of the Tower of Babel, basically. They build a tower trying to reach heaven, to break into the vault of heaven and get to see God. And basically, it works. The whole concept is that what they understood as, like astrology and, the structure of the universe around them was that there is a barrier at the top of the sky that leads to more water.
Right.
And that's where heaven is, and that's where God is. And if you can break through that, you would get to know God.
Right.
And they accomplish that. And to me, that is not them doing religion, that's them doing science. That is them taking, their understanding of the world and applying themselves to solving a problem,
Of course, they did it, but where did they end up?
Well, of course.
And that is that. And what does that indicate? And what does that say? Because to me, what I thought was interesting is they had this ultimate goal of breaking into the vault of heaven, yet it was clearly focused through quite a bit of it on the wonder of what humans have created in building this tower, and also views of the world from the tower and how beautiful, things on the earth are and remarkable in this effort to break the vault of heaven. And then in breaking, ending up. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I was just going to say we should have went
back to earth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and that I thought was really, really cool because there is a really scientific aspect to it as well. Like the engineering of how they built these tunnels to be more open at the base, and then, more closed off at the top to block out the wind and the heat and all of this stuff. And also, like, they were being able to make discoveries about the shape of the world because of the way the shadows fall on the tower and how the sunset looks from higher up and all of these things. As well as, yeah, it's really beautiful up here. The human ingenuity was definitely what was being focused on by the story. And it did have, I think, a really cool religious message, if that's something you want to get from it. But you don't need to. It can also just be a cool piece of science fiction if that's all you're after.
Yeah, because you can also interpret it in the context of this is about knowledge. It's a story about knowledge. How much do we know? How much can we learn? And sort of like this circular nature of it. And again, because we're always about books and language and stuff like that, that's how we also very often learn languages. We go in circles, just making everything a little bit more difficult every single time, but we basically still revise the same topics again and again and again. thus increasing our skills, our knowledge, our abilities. So that could be used that can be read into a lot of these cognitive learning endeavor.
Well, in this cyclical understanding of human knowledge and history kind of shows up a lot in Ted Chiang's work, actually. Like, there's always a sense of having to go back to the beginning at the end in a lot of his stories, I think. So that's a really fascinating thing to see that that's where he started, and he keeps visiting that in his work. I see a lot this kind of artistic, like, thought that pretty much every author, every movie director, every artist has like their thing, their theme. And I think for Ted Chiang, that's the theme.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really, of course, I'm going to pick up on, isn't it great that the way the main character understands this reality is to think of a printing object, which is the cylinder seal. Is that what they're called? Cylinder seal?
Cylinder seal. A seal cylinder, sorry.
Right. Which was basically a way of early printing. It made an imprint on, a flat surface. Usually stone, I think, is what they used. And so the two ends would be together on the seal because it's cylindrical. But then when you print it, they're all the way apart.
One's at the top and one's at the bottom.
That he comes to this understanding about how the earth and the heavens are connected through a way of using language, of, printing language even, is, tickles me to death.
Absolutely. I think that would also made it my favorite story of Ted Chiang, really, exactly that, because while I was reading, I did not expect this. May I read out a little quote from the end of the short story? And then it came to him. A seal cylinder. When rolled upon a tablet of soft clay, the card cylinder left an imprint that formed a picture. Two figures might appear at opposite ends of the tablet, though they stood side by side on the surface of the cylinder. All the world was as such a cylinder. Men imagined heaven and earth as being at the ends of a tablet, with sky and stars stretched between. Yet the world was wrapped around in some fantastic way so that heaven and earth touched. So in a way, this printed medium allows us to connect these things that kind of, in a lot of other worldviews, would keep incredibly separate from each other, right?
There is something a little bit fatalistic, I think, in the way this story is structured and how it ends, in this idea that you can never truly know, you can never truly see, and like God doesn't need to punish you for trying to seek him out because you'll never get there, basically. And that's like, God standing in for science in this story. It is a little bit depressing in a certain way. I do want to read another quote that is really close to the one you had at the end of the book. Centuries of their labor would not reveal to them any more of creation than they already knew. And I'm like, man, that's depressing. Like, but it means that all of this study and all of this effort doesn't actually open any new doors for us as a society.
But the thing is, does it not? I mean, the whole story was kind of explaining how amazing this tower is in its own right. How it is a city, how it has these different levels of community, how things are grown upside down on the top levels. It's like the higher to the top they go, the more they learn. So it is centuries of learning. And isn't that kind of what life is? You just keep learning. At some point you die and you stop learning. But
the knowledge itself stays there.
Yeah. And I just feel like it did seem like that quote was being a little more pessimistic than what you get from the story itself.
Yeah. I mean, this is just,
Right.
this character's understanding what's happened to him and his own interpretation, of course. Like, and yeah, that's exactly what you were saying, is like they did unlock a bunch of new concepts for farming and building all of these things, and they're all very in service of humanity. They're not getting any closer to understanding God, maybe, but then this character does. He gets to see it. He gets to see the whole thing. Every mystery of the universe suddenly revealed to him, and I kept waiting for it to be taken away. Like, he doesn't remember what happened to him or something. But no, he does know, and he gets to go on and tell people. And I'm like, okay. So he has this really pessimistic, oh, we're never going to get there. And I'm like, dude, you just got told the truth, capital T. Like, be excited about that, you know?
But I like that his final reaction is more like, oh, I would go back to Babylon.
Right.
I would see my family again. I also love the following part. He would send word to those on the tower. He would tell them about the shape of the world. And that to me also sounds a little bit pessimistic because we all know how that's going to go. No one's going to believe it.
Well,
And that's going to, and not in order for this news to, like, with this explanation of what the world is actually structured like, for that, he has to sort of, he and his knowledge have to go all the way up again.
right.
And then he will just enter the whole scene from the beginning again.
Or
that is
or
what
he'll
we,
send somebody else up to be like, see for yourself, and then they're kicked down to the bottom.
But that's also the cylinder until it's printed. Because once it's printed, it's there. But as the cylinder,
yeah,
it's an endless.
well, I mean, that's it. The cylinder seal is such a cool metaphor for it because only one person gets to have the cylinder and see what it really runs like. Right, the two ends actually meet on the cylinder. Everybody else just sees the print.
Right. Right. I think these ideas of like what is science, what is cognition, what is creation, what is the nature of us in this world also comes up in 72 Letters and in The Evolution of Human Science, the other two short stories from this collection. I feel like they even more explicitly discussed in that context. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that as a collection, Stories of Your Life and Others is absolutely brilliant as far as collecting stories that work really well together and are variations on a theme. You don't always get that with short story collections. Sometimes they're just all the short stories that this author has written, regardless of whether they belong in a book together or not. But these ones really, really do seem to, if you read all of them, you kind of get the same thoughts over and over again in a certain way.
it's a true collection. And I think it's clear that Chiang, I'm not sure how you pronounce the name correctly, that he has this observation in his writing that he's constantly striving to think about and perfect and tell different stories of different ways of looking, how we use language, how we think scientifically, how we see the world, how we see religion, all these things. And I think it's a remarkable collection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was his whole premise for the really famous one, which is Story of Your Life, is to approach it linguistically as opposed to through, any kind of other science that you might use to study aliens. And I'm like, it's really cool that he has such a broad view of what science is. And, I think it's really special. And I really like this story specifically, I think, because I grew up on Madeleine L'Engle. Do you guys know Madeleine L'Engle? And she had all of her books were this kind of marriage of faith and science. And she even had the characters talk about it in her stories. And I really always liked this sort of idea that the truest worship you could have is the desire to study and understand. I think it's a really fascinating concept, and I feel like that's one that shows up here in the Tower of Babylon. Like, somebody actually sat down and went, wait, why would they build a tower to heaven? Why would you do that?
Why would you do that and then use it for something so weird, like things you normally would do on land? Can I maybe quote one little thing? Also, what makes me so fascinated about Ted Chiang is really his language. I can only read one Ted Chiang story at a time, because then I spend like the next 6 months just thinking about it.
That's so. When did we all read this? Years ago, when we were obviously still thinking about it.
Yeah. And so the quote goes, Hilalum's friend, Nani, prodded him with an elbow, awestruck. We are to climb that? To the top? Going up to dig. It seems unnatural. And that is the whole paradox of this story. They keep doing like seemingly wrong things in wrong places. Like that's not what it's meant for. Like if it's a tower, why would you farm up there? Why not farm down here where we actually read it?
Like stone miners to the top of a tower to get into heaven. That sounds crazy. Right?
But they had to farm up there because look how difficult it was to get supplies up and how if things fell down, they fell down. It was.
I really loved the passage at the beginning of the story where they're trying to convince Hilalum that if you drop a trowel, it's worth more than a human life if they fall off the tower. And he's just like, no, it isn't. You guys can bring like 100 trowels in one of these carts. Obviously, you have extras up there.
Lovely, lovely. So yeah, beautiful short story. I think also there is a reason why it begins the collection, why it opens up with this particular story, because to me that's basically this quest after knowledge and cognition and seeing different facets of reality is what Ted Chiang does in every short story he looks at.
Yeah, I mean, he is clearly very interested in science, and I think he also does like tech writing and stuff like that. But he has such a compassionate view of humanity within that. And he really obviously sees science as a way for us to understand ourselves and be kinder to each other. And I think that's a really fascinating way to do science fiction.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and we need to get back to that in the world.
I mean, they just don't. I mean, no, they do. They do still make really wonderful science fiction that is just like that.
Yes.
I'll shout out one of the authors that I think does a lot of this kind of really kind humanist science fiction writing. And it is shout out to Becky Chambers, who writes, I feel like, science fiction that is really less about the science and more about the people who do the science. Great books.
I think it would be kind of interesting, even though I don't do comparative lit anymore, to kind of juxtapose this tower against the tower in Wool, and how the tower in Wool is built as an achievement, but it's meant to obfuscate and not to achieve, where this one's made, they're very different ideas of a tower that is a community. I think it'd be interesting to deep dive into that. But
I mean, honestly, we should just try to compile a list of books like science fiction towers.
yes,
Because I feel like towers have been this motif in fiction for a really long time, starting with the Tower of Babel.
yeah,
Absolutely. The OG tower. Well, English Department of Munster does own a tower. So, well, not own, but like they are located in a building that features a tower. So just saying.
Yeah. And we have had many interesting discussions in the room at the very top.
Yeah.
we have indeed.
Come by and visit Munster.
It's the place where they send everybody to die.
That was a veiled reference to, oh no, we've come back around to me yelling about accessibility. There's no elevator to the top. It's so far.
I know. As someone who sometimes has problems, that's a real inconvenience, because I have to go up the elevator, go through the Audimax, even if there's tons of students in there who always think I'm the teacher when I come in. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to my class. Leave me alone. This is maybe too specific. Still, it is a matter of accessibility.
Yes, but still, nonetheless, thank you so much for this conversation.
Bye.